The atmosphere of Orivon was thick with the hum of advanced technologies and the endless symphony of its interspecies marketplace. Neon lights reflected off the polished streets as beings of all forms, tentacled, scaled, furred, and more, moved with purpose through the bustling trade hub. Among them was Dr. Daniel Carter, a human xenobiologist from Earth, navigating the crowd with a datapad clutched in one hand and his thoughts consumed by the upcoming symposium on cross-species genetics. Daniel was thrilled to be stationed on Orivon. It wasn't every day that a human scientist was invited to collaborate with some of the galaxy's most brilliant minds. This was an opportunity to learn, to contribute, and perhaps to cement humanity's place as a respected member of the galactic scientific community. But it was also, as he would soon learn, an opportunity to commit a monumental social blunder. The symposium hall was a marvel of architecture, its walls alive with bioluminescent patterns that shifted in sync with the speaker's presentations. Daniel found himself seated next to Iana, a renowned geneticist from the Valterian species. Tall and elegant, Iana's presence was as commanding as her intellect. Her skin shimmered in iridescent hues, her violet eyes glinting with a sharp intelligence that Daniel found both fascinating and, if he were honest, a little intimidating. Their conversation began pleasantly enough. Iana described her species' unique approach to reproduction, which combined genetic engineering with a communal gestation process. The Valterians, she explained, had long since moved beyond the constraints of biological chance, crafting their offspring with precision to ensure the survival of desired traits. I can see the efficiency in that, Daniel had remarked at first, genuinely impressed. But as Iana elaborated on the intricate rituals and emotional bonds tied to the process, Daniel, feeling an unwise need to add his own commentary, interjected with a smirk. It does seem a bit excessive, doesn't it? All that effort just for something humans have managed to do naturally for millennia? The words hung in the air like an uninvited specter. Iana's expression shifted, her iridescent skin darkening slightly, a clear sign of offense. Around them, other attendees turned to glance at the awkward exchange. Daniel's face burned with embarrassment as he realized too late that his remark had not been received as the harmless jest he'd intended. Excessive? Iana repeated, her tone icy. I see. Perhaps it is natural for a species bound by chance and inefficiency to perceive progress as unnecessary. Daniel opened his mouth to apologize, but Iana had already risen from her seat. Later that evening, as Daniel nursed a drink in the quiet corner of a nearby lounge, he heard the unmistakable cadence of Iana's voice. Dr. Carter, she said, her tone measured but pointed. A word? Daniel set down his glass and turned to face her. She stood with an air of composed determination, her shimmering form drawing the attention of others in the room. I've been thinking about our earlier conversation, she began, and I have decided that it would be educational for you to witness the process you so casually dismissed. Daniel blinked, unsure if he was being reprimanded or extended an olive branch. You mean, to observe Valterian reproduction? Precisely, but not just observe. Iana continued, her eyes narrowing slightly. Participate, scientifically. Of course, I am conducting an experiment that requires a non-Valterian perspective. And since you are so confident in the superiority of your species' methods, I believe you would make an ideal candidate. Her words were sharp, but there was a glimmer of challenge in her expression that intrigued Daniel. I'm honored, he stammered, unsure if he truly was. Good. Then meet me at the lab tomorrow morning. And, Dr. Carter, I suggest you come prepared to expand your understanding. The Valterian laboratory was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Organic and alive. The walls pulsed with a gentle bioluminescence that seemed to respond to the presence of its occupants. Iana guided him through a series of corridors, her movements graceful and deliberate. In here, she said, gesturing toward a chamber that glowed softly in shades of blue and green. Inside, a series of translucent pods lined the walls, each containing what appeared to be a suspended matrix of genetic material. This, Iana began, is the cradle of Valterian life. Each pod represents a potential offspring, a collaboration of genetic donors who contribute traits selected for their compatibility and utility. Daniel approached one of the pods, his scientific curiosity overtaking his initial apprehension. "It's beautiful," he admitted. Ayana nodded, her expression softening slightly. "It is also fragile, and it is this fragility that necessitates our methods. But I am not here to lecture you, Dr. Carter. I am here to show you." She gestured toward a console at the center of the room. "Today, we will create a new matrix. You will contribute to its design, selecting traits as you see fit. Consider it an exercise in understanding." Daniel hesitated. "You want me to design a life form?" "Precisely. But be warned, this is not a task to be taken lightly. The choices you make will determine the matrix's viability and its future." As Daniel stood before the console, the weight of the task pressed heavily on him. The interface displayed a dizzying array of genetic options, each accompanied by detailed explanations. Intelligence, resilience, empathy, creativity. Each trait could be enhanced, diminished, or omitted entirely. "This is incredible," he murmured, his fingers hovering over the controls. "But how do you decide what's most important?" Ayana stepped closer, her voice quiet but firm. "That is the question we have grappled with for centuries, and it is a question you must answer for yourself." Daniel's mind raced as he considered the implications. Every choice felt like a profound responsibility, a reflection of his values and beliefs. As he selected traits, he found himself questioning not only his understanding of genetics, but also his own biases and assumptions. When he finally stepped back from the console, he turned to Ayana. "I think I'm ready." She studied the matrix, her expression inscrutable. "Interesting choices," she said finally, "but the true test lies ahead." As the experiment progressed, Daniel and Ayana found themselves spending long hours in the lab, analyzing the matrix and debating the implications of their work. What began as a professional collaboration gradually deepened into something more personal. Ayana's sharp intellect and unyielding passion for her work fascinated Daniel, while his curiosity and willingness to learn earned her begrudging respect. One evening, as they reviewed the Matrix's progress, Ayana turned to Daniel with an intensity that caught him off guard. "You asked why we put so much effort into this process," she said. "It is because we believe that life, true, meaningful life, is worth every ounce of care we can give it. Do you still think it excessive?" Daniel met her gaze, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine admiration. "No," he said softly. "I think it's extraordinary." For the first time, Ayana smiled. As the days stretched into weeks, Daniel found himself immersed in the intricacies of the matrix they had created. Ayana's teaching methods were exacting, her critiques sharp, but her guidance pushed Daniel to think in ways he never had before. The matrix, suspended in its pod of shimmering fluid, began to evolve, its traits manifesting in patterns that Daniel couldn't help but find mesmerizing. But progress came with challenges. One evening, while analyzing a recent development in the matrix's neurological patterns, Daniel suggested a modification. "If we adjust the neurochemical pathways here," he said, pointing to the console, "we could enhance its adaptability and problem-solving skills." Ayana frowned. "At the expense of emotional balance. Do you value logic over compassion, Dr. Carter?" "It's not about valuing one over the other," Daniel countered, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "It's about creating something that can survive. What's the point of emotional balance if it can't adapt to the challenges it might face?" Ayana's iridescent skin darkened, a sign of disapproval. "Survival is not the only measure of success. A being without compassion is a being without connection, without purpose." Their debate continued late into the night, each defending their perspective with increasing fervor. When Ayana finally left the lab, her parting words lingered in the air. "Perhaps this is why your species clings to inefficiency. You fear the complexity of true creation." The tension between them persisted, but it was soon overshadowed by an unexpected discovery. One morning, as Daniel reviewed the Matrix's latest data, he noticed an anomaly, a subtle but unmistakable divergence from their projected outcomes. Did you see this? He asked Diana when she arrived at the lab. She studied the data, her violet eyes narrowing in concentration. Fascinating. The matrix is exhibiting emergent properties, traits we did not program. Daniel's heart raced. Is that supposed to happen? It is rare, but not unprecedented. Iona replied. Emergent traits often reflect the interplay of genetic and environmental factors. It is as if the matrix is teaching us as much as we are shaping it. The anomaly sparked a renewed sense of purpose in their work. Together, they delved into the matrix's evolving patterns, their earlier disagreements forgotten in the face of this new mystery. As they worked, Daniel found himself increasingly drawn to Iona, not just for her intellect, but for the passion and depth she brought to every aspect of her work. One evening, as they observed the matrix's neural activity, Iona began to share more about her species' philosophy. The Valterian approach to reproduction is not just about genetics, she said. It is a reflection of our values. We believe that every life is a collaboration, a tapestry woven from the threads of our collective aspirations. That is why we involve the community in the process. It ensures that no being is ever truly alone. Daniel listened intently, her words stirring something within him. It's beautiful, he admitted, but it's so different from how humans think about reproduction. For us, it's personal, intimate. Iona tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. And yet, your intimacy often leads to division. Families fractured, societies fragmented. Perhaps it is your individuality that makes you strong, or perhaps it is your greatest weakness. Her words struck a chord, and Daniel found himself questioning assumptions he had taken for granted his entire life. As the matrix approached maturity, the bond between Daniel and Iona deepened. They spent countless hours together, sharing ideas, challenges, and moments of quiet reflection. What began as professional collaboration evolved into something far more personal, a connection that transcended species and backgrounds. One evening, as they reviewed the Matrix's final stages of development, Iona turned to Daniel with an uncharacteristic vulnerability. Do you remember when I said that life is worth every ounce of care we can give it? She asked. Yes, Daniel replied, his gaze steady. I have come to realize that this principle applies not only to our work, but to the connections we forge with others. You, Dr. Carter, have challenged me in ways I did not expect. And for that, I am grateful. Daniel felt a warmth spread through him, her words resonating deeply. The feeling is mutual, he said. You've shown me a perspective I never would have considered, and I think it's made me a better scientist and a better person. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the glow of the matrix casting soft light across their faces. The unspoken tension between them was palpable, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something neither of them fully understood. The day finally came when the matrix reached its final stage of development. The pod's bioluminescent glow intensified, signaling that the time for activation was near. This is it, Iona said, her voice tinged with anticipation. The matrix is ready to emerge. Daniel's heart pounded as they prepared the chamber. Together, they initiated the final sequence, the pod's fluid draining to reveal a form unlike anything he had ever seen. The being that emerged was a harmonious blend of human and Valterian traits, its features delicate yet robust, its skin shimmering with a faint iridescence. The being opened its eyes, and Daniel felt a surge of awe. Those eyes, a perfect fusion of human warmth and Valterian intensity, seemed to hold the weight of infinite possibilities. It's alive, he whispered. Iona nodded, her expression one of quiet triumph. And it is ours. The being stood before them, trembling slightly as its body adjusted to the unfamiliar world outside the pod. Its skin glowed faintly, the patterns of iridescence shifting like a living aurora. Daniel and Iona exchanged a glance, equal parts awe and apprehension. Do you feel anything unusual? Iona asked, her voice soft but steady. Daniel nodded. There was an indescribable pull, as if the being's presence resonated on a deeper level, not just visually or audibly but emotionally. It's like it's aware of us already. The being's gaze moved between them, its luminous eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and recognition. Then, slowly, it extended a hand, its fingers long and slender, a perfect blend of human and Valterian anatomy. Iona stepped forward first, placing her hand lightly against the being's. A faint pulse of energy rippled between them, lighting the room for a brief moment. Fascinating, Iona whispered. It's attuning itself to us. Bonding. Daniel hesitated, then stepped forward and placed his hand against the being's other palm. The same pulse rippled through him, a sensation that was neither painful nor pleasurable, but deeply profound. The being tilted its head, its lips parting as it spoke its first words. I am here, it said, its voice a harmonious blend of tones, soft, musical, and layered with depth. Daniel's breath caught. It can already speak? Iona nodded, her expression both delighted and wary. The neural enhancements. Its capacity for learning and adaptation is far beyond what we anticipated. The being looked between them again. You created me, it said, its voice steady. Why? The question struck them both. Iona recovered first, her voice gentle but firm. Because life is the most precious gift we can offer. You are the culmination of our hopes and ideas, a new beginning. The being seemed to consider this, its eyes narrowing slightly as if testing the weight of her words. It turned its gaze to Daniel. Do you agree? Daniel hesitated. His mind raced through the implications of their creation, the ethical dilemmas, the uncharted territory of their experiment. Finally, he said, we created you because we wanted to understand, to learn what's possible when two perspectives come together to make something greater. The being nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then I will learn, too. Iona gestured toward a diagnostic chair, a sleek piece of living technology designed to analyze the being's physiological and neural systems. If you are willing, we'd like to begin by understanding more about you. The being complied without hesitation, its movements graceful as it sat in the chair. As Iona activated the diagnostic systems, Daniel couldn't help but marvel at the creature's composure. What should we call you? He asked suddenly. The being looked at him, a faint smile forming on its lips. You may choose. Iona tilted her head. Names carry significance. They shape how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. Are you certain you wish for us to decide? The being nodded. You created me. Let my name reflect your intent. Daniel and Iona exchanged a glance, unspoken understanding passing between them. How about Nova? Daniel suggested. It symbolizes new beginnings, a star born from cosmic chaos. Iona's lips curved into a faint smile. Nova, she repeated. It is fitting. The being Nova smiled in return. Then I am Nova. Over the following weeks, Nova's learning accelerated at an astonishing rate. It absorbed knowledge like a sponge, mastering languages, scientific principles, and cultural nuances with ease. Its intelligence was undeniable. But what surprised Daniel and Iona most was Nova's emotional depth. One day, as Daniel explained Earth's history of exploration and conflict, Nova interrupted with a question. Why does your species fight so often? Daniel hesitated, caught off guard by the directness of the question. It's complicated. Humans fight over resources, beliefs, and sometimes just fear of the unknown. Nova tilted its head, its iridescent skin flickering faintly. But fear is not insurmountable. Understanding dissolves fear. Have you tried to understand one another? Daniel chuckled bitterly. We've tried, but it's not always that simple. Nova's gaze turned to Iona. And your species? Do Valterians fight? Iona's expression grew somber. We did, long ago, but we learned that unity was our strength. We chose to evolve, not just biologically but socially. It is why we dedicate ourselves to creation rather than destruction. Nova looked thoughtful. Perhaps I can help you understand each other. Daniel and Iona exchanged a glance. The idea that Nova could bridge the gap between their species, or even others, was both exciting and daunting. Not everyone on Orivon shared their optimism about Nova. Rumors of their experiment had begun to spread, sparking both intrigue and suspicion among the scientific community. One day, As Daniel and Ayana presented their findings at a symposium, a voice from the audience interrupted them. "This being you've created," said Dr. Carex, a prominent Naltharian biologist with a reputation for skepticism. "What guarantees do you have that it won't become a threat?" Ayana's expression hardened. "Nova is not a threat. It is a bridge, a testament to what can be achieved through collaboration." Dr. Carex sneered. "Or an abomination, tampering with the natural order. You may have opened a door you cannot close." The murmurs in the audience grew louder. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady. "Nova isn't just a creation. It's a chance to learn, to challenge our assumptions and grow as a collective." But Carex wasn't convinced. "Mark my words, Carter. Experiments like this rarely end well." The exchange left a sour note, but it also strengthened Daniel and Ayana's resolve. They returned to the lab that evening, determined to prove Nova's potential. As tension simmered on Orivon, Nova began to express a desire to explore. "I wish to see the world beyond this lab," it said one day, "to understand what lies outside." Ayana was hesitant. "The galaxy is vast and unpredictable. Are you certain you're ready?" Nova smiled faintly. "I was created to adapt, to learn. Let me fulfill that purpose." Daniel nodded in agreement. Maybe it's time. Nova's presence might challenge others to reconsider their biases, just as it's challenged ours. Together, they devised a plan for Nova to accompany them to a nearby colony, a neutral zone where interspecies cooperation was paramount. The mission was simple: observe, interact, and report. But as they prepared for departure, Daniel couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. The galaxy was a place of wonders, but it was also a place of dangers. Nova's journey was only just beginning, and the challenges ahead would test not only its capabilities, but the very foundation of its creation. The destination was the Anchoress colony, a hub of interspecies diplomacy located on the edge of the Orion Rift. Known for its strict neutrality, Anchoress was a melting pot of cultures, ideologies, and technologies, a perfect proving ground for Nova's first foray into the wider galaxy. Daniel, Ayana, and Nova boarded the Celestial Path, a sleek Valtarian shuttle outfitted with advanced sensory equipment. The journey to Anchoress would take 2 days, and the quiet of hyperspace gave them time to prepare Nova for what lay ahead. "Anchoress is a complex place," Ayana said, showing Nova holographic projections of the colony. "The beings you'll meet there are as diverse as the stars themselves. Each has its own culture, values, and biases. Some will be curious about you. Others may fear you." Nova nodded, its iridescent skin shifting faintly, a sign of deep thought. "Fear often stems from misunderstanding. If I can understand them, perhaps I can help them understand me." Daniel couldn't help but admire Nova's optimism, though he knew the reality would be more challenging. "Just be careful," he said. "Not everyone will welcome what you represent." Nova's eyes met his, filled with a quiet determination. "I will be careful, but I will not hide." The celestial path emerged from hyperspace above Anchoress, the colony's domed structures glittering against the backdrop of the rift's swirling cosmic colors. As they descended, Daniel felt a pang of unease. The colony was beautiful, but it was also unpredictable, a place where alliances could shift with the slightest provocation. They were greeted at the docking bay by Talaris, an Ancharian diplomat with smooth, chitinous skin and eyes that sparkled like black diamonds. "Dr. Ayana, Dr. Carter," Talaris said, their voice melodious and precise. "And this must be Nova. Welcome to Anchoress." Nova stepped forward, offering a slight bow. "Thank you for receiving me. I look forward to learning about your colony." Talaris tilted their head, studying Nova with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "We have heard much about you. I trust you will find Anchoress enlightening." As they made their way through the colony's bustling corridors, Nova drew stares from passers-by. Some whispered among themselves, others watched in silence, their expressions unreadable. Nova, for its part, remained poised, its luminous eyes taking in every detail. Their first formal meeting was with the Anchoress Council, a governing body composed of representatives from 10 species. The council chamber was a circular room filled with bioluminescent plants that cast a soft, shifting light. As they entered, the murmurs began. "So, this is the hybrid," one voice said, low and skeptical. "A creation of science," another added. "But is it life?" Daniel felt a surge of anger at the dismissive tone, but Ayana placed a calming hand on his arm. "Let Nova speak," she whispered. Nova stepped forward, its voice steady and clear. "Honored members of the Anchoress Council, I am Nova. I was created not to replace life, but to understand it, to bridge gaps between perspectives, and to explore what unites us." There was a moment of silence before a Tharkalan representative, their segmented body glistening with moisture, leaned forward. "And why should we trust something made in a laboratory? Life is meant to arise naturally, not through manipulation." Nova met the Tharkalan's gaze without flinching. "You fear that my origins make me less authentic. But what defines authenticity? I feel, I think, I seek purpose, just as you do. Does it matter how I came to be?" The room fell quiet, the council members exchanging thoughtful glances. Talaris, who had been observing silently, finally spoke. "Nova raises an interesting question. Perhaps our time together will provide an answer." Despite Nova's composed demeanor, not everyone on Anchoress welcomed its presence. Whispers of discontent spread through the colony, fueled by those who saw Nova as a threat to the natural order. Among them was Dr. Carex, who had followed them to Anchoress under the guise of attending diplomatic talks. Late one evening, as Daniel and Ayana reviewed data from Nova's interactions, a warning alarm blared through the lab. The containment field around Nova's quarters had been breached. Daniel and Ayana raced to the scene, their hearts pounding. Inside, they found Nova unharmed but visibly shaken. The walls were scorched with signs of a plasma discharge, and the remnants of a sabotage device lay smoldering on the floor. "Someone tried to harm you," Ayana said, her voice tight with anger. Nova's iridescence dimmed slightly. "They fear me. But fear is not justification for violence." Daniel clenched his fists. "This isn't just fear. This is hate. Whoever did this wants to destroy what you represent." Talaris arrived moments later, their expression grim. "This is unacceptable. We will investigate immediately." But Nova shook its head. "No retaliation. Fear cannot be conquered by force. Let me speak with them." Nova's insistence on addressing its detractors directly sparked heated debate among Daniel, Ayana, and the council. Ayana argued against the idea, fearing for Nova's safety, while Daniel worried it would only provoke more hostility. But Nova remained resolute. "If I am to prove my existence has value, I must face their doubts. Hiding will only confirm their fears." Reluctantly, the council agreed to a public forum, where Nova would address the colony and take questions from anyone willing to speak. The event was held in Anchoress Central Plaza, a vast open space surrounded by towering crystalline structures. Hundreds gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and hostility. Nova stood in the center, its presence commanding yet serene. A Tharkalan merchant was the first to speak. "You claim to be alive, but you were made, not born. How can you understand the struggles of those who must fight for their existence?" Nova's voice was calm, yet filled with emotion. "I was made, yes, but I must also fight, to prove I am more than the sum of my parts. My struggle may be different, but it is no less real." Next came a Zalarian engineer, whose translucent body flickered with anger. "If beings like you can be created, what stops your creators from replacing us all?" Nova hesitated, its iridescence dimming for a moment before it spoke. "I do not seek to replace. I seek to coexist. Each of you is unique. Your experiences, your cultures, your choices. I am not a threat to your existence, but a complement to it." The crowd murmured, and for the first time, Daniel saw cracks in their skepticism. But he also saw shadows in the crowd, figures watching, waiting, plotting. As Nova continued to speak, Daniel's unease grew. He noticed Dr. Carex among the crowd, his gaze fixed on Nova with a cold intensity. Something wasn't right. "I'll be back," Daniel whispered to Ayana, slipping into the shadows. Following Carex through the winding corridors of Anchoress, Daniel discovered a concealed alcove where the scientist was speaking in hushed tones to a group of unknown conspirators. Fragments of their conversation sent a chill down his spine. Must end this now. That thing's existence undermines everything we stand for. Daniel didn't wait to hear more. He activated his communicator, calling Ayana. We've got a problem. Daniel returned to the plaza just as Nova was finishing its address. The crowd's mood had shifted. Curiosity and skepticism still lingered, but hostility was giving way to a cautious openness. Nova's calm demeanor and thoughtful responses had begun to chip away at their fears. But Daniel's mind was elsewhere. He approached Ayana, his face tense. Carex is planning something. I overheard him talking about ending this, whatever it takes. Ayana's iridescent skin flared with alarm. We need to alert Talaris. Before they could act, a sharp hum filled the air. A surge of energy erupted from the crowd, striking the platform where Nova stood. The ground trembled as the force knocked Nova backward, its glowing skin dimming. Chaos erupted as spectators scattered in panic. From the crowd, Carex emerged, holding a sleek, dangerous-looking device. You think this thing deserves to stand among us? He shouted, his voice filled with venom. It's a mockery of life. Talaris and security forces rushed forward, but Carex activated a shield around himself, blocking their approach. He pointed the device at Nova. It's charge building. Nova rose slowly, its luminous gaze fixed on Carex. Despite the attack, its voice remained steady. You fear me because I challenge your understanding of life. But destruction will not preserve your beliefs. It will only deepen the divide. Carex sneered. Your words mean nothing. You're an affront to everything natural. Daniel stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. And what's natural about this? He shouted. A scientist who fears what he doesn't understand? You're not defending life. You're destroying it out of hatred. Carex hesitated, his hand trembling, but the weapon's charge surged, its energy reaching critical levels. As the device prepared to fire, Nova stepped toward Carex, its movements deliberate and calm. If ending my existence will ease your fear, then do so, Nova said, its voice filled with quiet resolve. But know this, I do not hate you. I understand you. The words stopped Carex in his tracks. For a moment, the plaza fell silent, the tension unbearable. But then, something extraordinary happened. Nova's iridescent glow intensified, its shimmering light cascading over the crowd. The energy was warm and soothing, like a wave of understanding washing over everyone present. The weapon in Carex's hand faltered, its power fading as if overwhelmed by Nova's presence. Carex dropped the device, his expression one of shock and confusion. What are you doing? Nova's voice was gentle, showing you that fear does not have to define us. The security forces apprehended Carex, but the crowd's focus remained on Nova. Many approached cautiously, their expressions a mix of awe and guilt. A young Zalarian stepped forward, its translucent form flickering with emotion. I was wrong about you, it said. You are more than I imagined. Others echoed similar sentiments, their fear replaced by a tentative hope. Nova responded to each with grace, offering words of kindness and encouragement. Talaris addressed the crowd, their voice resonating with authority. Let this moment be a reminder that understanding is the foundation of peace. Nova has shown us that life, no matter its origin, deserves respect. In the days that followed, Nova's presence on Anchoress became a symbol of unity, though some remained wary. Many began to see Nova as a bridge between worlds, a living testament to what could be achieved through collaboration and courage. But Nova knew its journey was far from over. I must continue to learn, it said to Daniel and Ayana as they prepared to leave Anchoress. The galaxy is vast, and there is so much more to understand. Daniel felt a pang of sadness, but also pride. You've already done more than we ever imagined. Wherever you go, you'll make a difference. Ayana stepped closer, her expression both fond and determined. Remember what you've taught us as well, Nova, that life's greatest strength lies in its capacity to connect. Nova smiled, its iridescent glow warm and steady. I will not forget. As the celestial path departed Anchoress, Daniel and Ayana watched the colony shrink into the distance, their hearts heavy yet hopeful. Nova stood with them, gazing at the stars. What's next? Daniel asked. Nova's eyes shimmered with light. The unknown, and that is where we will find the answers. For Daniel, Ayana, and Nova, the journey was just beginning. Together, they would face new challenges, uncover deeper truths, and continue to prove that understanding was the key to a better future. And as they ventured into the vast expanse of the galaxy, one thing was certain: Nova's story was far from over.